What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers head to Cleveland tomorrow to take on the Browns on Thursday Night Football in Week 12, a game that will be filled with potentially a lot of running football, because I don't know if you've seen the videos from Cleveland, but it is a straight hurricane over there. Looks pretty wild. Excited for it. Old school, hard-nosed, badass AFC North football. That's what we're getting into. And, I mean, the weather only adds to that. And, you know, we just recorded our pre-recorded episode for tomorrow, and I mentioned that I tried to dress all uppy and realized this ain't the showdown for uppy. This is old school badass AFC North football in the rain on the river. I'm feeling good. It's starting to rain here in Pittsburgh, which means that it ain't going to stop anytime soon. I'll see the sunshine again on Saturday, maybe. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good. You know, short week. We only got about 28, 30 hours left until we get some Steelers football. So anytime we get football within 4 days, it's great for the fans. It's great for us who cover the sport. Not so great for those playing it, especially whenever you're going to play it in sub-freezing temperatures right next to a lake. But hey, not for me to complain. It's for others too.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be a crazy fan and go, and that's awesome. But I would imagine that there are more Cleveland fans than Steelers fans in this one. And if you are a Steelers fan, you're hunking down, you're going. You know, you're supporting a team that's 8-2. They need you there. If you're a Cleveland fan, you're sitting in the stands for a 2-8 football team in the freezing cold with the rain and the wind. That just sounds, I mean, look at pal. It's Thursday. You probably got to go to work tomorrow. What are we doing here, pal? What are we doing? I just think different situations. If it was all black and gold, 100% respect. You want to know why? Because there is a cause worth grinding it out for. A 2-8 football team, you'd lose me real quick once I opened the front door and realized the front door is trying very, very hard to push back at me. That's when I think I'd shut down and say, you know what, hon? Next time we could drink eggs and beer from home. And we have many options. What are the eggs? What are the amount of eggs you think gets snuck into First Energy Stadium? For those of you who don't know, Cleveland Browns fans are weird, and they bring eggs to the stadium to put in their beer, and then they chug it because, again, super weird. How many eggs do you think get brought into First Energy Stadium a weekend?
Well, how many seats do they have there? Probably 60, 70, something around that. I'd say there's at least 30,000 eggs that are going into that stadium tomorrow.
That's so what? 30,000 eggs are ruining beers tomorrow. That is a wild statistic that we have just clearly made up, but could possibly be real. That's nuts. Shout out to the Steelers fans. Don't put eggs in your beer. If a Cleveland fan asks you to do it, say no. We don't do peer pressure. We just drink beer like normal Yinzers. Okay. Shout out Icy Light. Shout out. We got an exciting episode for you guys today. 2 wild quarterback options have emerged for the Pittsburgh Steelers that I'm very excited to dive into, possibly shut down, and acknowledge that there's a shot, I guess, in one lifetime or another. There's definitely a shot at maybe both of these guys, definitely one of these guys. The Hall of Fame class has been announced, and we're diving into power rankings because it is Wednesday, and we got what looks like a pretty fresh 5 for you coming off of Week 11 against the Baltimore Ravens. I'll send it to you for a couple of news and notes to get this bad boy cracking. What do we got?
Yeah, you mentioned those 2 interesting quarterback names. We'll save those for last and start off with a couple of more real pieces of news and notes. And let's start with the Pro Football Hall of Fame announcing their semifinalists, which include 25 modern era semifinalists for 2025. Those names included James Harrison, and for the 9th time in a row, Hines Ward. So what do you think about Hines Ward, James Harrison, moving on to the next step at potentially getting into Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think at some point it has to be recognized that Hines Ward deserves to be a Hall of Famer, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame just has to do the right thing and put him in there. There are certain guys You know, there are certain guys that deserve to get in, that wait a while, and eventually they get in. But there's almost nobody that sits around forever. And there are a few. There are definitely a few. I would say a dozen or so that spend their entire lives. They never get into the Football Hall of Fame, even though they deserve to. Like, they definitely, no questions asked, deserve to. There are countless who are borderline, probably could make it, but there's an argument for them not to make it, who never make it. Hines Ward is a bona fide should be Hall of Famer. There are no questions asked that he should be a bona fide 100% Hall of Famer. Shouldn't have taken him 9 years, but it takes wide receivers way longer than it takes seemingly anybody else, because they only put one or two of them in a class, and there are so many of them that they just say, we'll wait this year. We'll wait until the next time. And eventually you get draft classes, or not draft classes, Hall of Fame classes that include Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt and Steve Smith and Anquan Bolden and Hines Ward. And once again, you're sitting around going, yeah, he probably deserves to get in, but the competition is fierce. And it wouldn't surprise anybody if they picked Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt over Hines Ward. And I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm saying it wouldn't surprise us if that's what went down. Hines Ward is a two-time Super Bowl champion. He's got 1,000 catches, 12,083 yards, 85 touchdowns. He played 14 years. He won a Super Bowl MVP, 4 All-Pro selections, 3 All-Pro selections, and 4 Pro Bowls. I mean, there are no questions to be asked about whether or not Hines Ward did what he needed to do to get into the Hall of Fame. And then on the other side of that, I mean, Debo is a Hall of Famer. James Harrison, if the Hall of Fame is, are you one of the greatest players of all time, but more specifically, are you one of the greatest players of your generation? Did you do enough that in the modern era, in your era, did you solidify yourself as a great? James Harrison was the best player, the best defensive player in the NFL for at least a year, maybe 2 or 3, depending on how you judge them, and was the scariest human being in the NFL for 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I get it. The window was small. It wasn't 14 years like Hines Ward where he just dominated the league. But when he came fiercely, and it was, I mean, everybody remembers it. Everybody knows who James Harrison is. Everybody remembers what James Harrison did. James Harrison was the scariest person on the field for a long time. And because of that, he is also a solidified, no questions asked Hall of Famer. I don't know if either of these guys get in this year. I'll be very honest. But I think they both deserve to. And I think it's crazy that you only pick, 5, 6 modern era guys?
Yeah.
And it should expand, because at some point we have to recognize that a lot of people are getting left out and the NFL is getting crowded. And I get it. The Hall of Fame, you don't want to be the NBA where everybody gets in as long as you touch the court. It's different. And you don't want to be the MLB where nobody gets in, even though you deserve to get in. You want to be right in the middle, but I think right in the middle could be a little bit expanded, because guys like Hines Ward, guys like Debo, James Harrison should 100% be in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think there's any questions asked there.
Here's the thing. They both have resumes to get there on their own, but they also both have that marquee moment, right? Hines Ward on the double pass from Antoine Randall in Super Bowl 40. He's leaping into the end zone with that iconic smile. And James Harrison, the 99-yard, 101-yard interception return for a touchdown on Kurt Warner with Larry Fitzgerald hunting him down in one of the greatest Super Bowls we have ever seen. Yes. That should be enough to get them there. And I'm not saying that they should be 100% bona fide in this year. I agree with you on that stance, but they should be in. And this might be a wild take, but I don't care that Eli Manning's a quarterback. They deserve to be in just as much as Eli Manning, because all he is a resume with 1 or 2 moments in the Super Bowl. And that's great. And that he should be there, but we shouldn't change the criteria just because he did it against the Patriots. Whereas these other two did it for the Steelers against 2 teams that don't have any massive acclaim.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're going to track down, I think everybody goes off position, and that's why James didn't get in last year, because you were going to put in guys like Dwight Freeney, and I understood that one. You know what I mean? Like Dwight Freeney, Joey Seymour, like those guys did it for a decade plus, and they did it well. This year, I think the class where it stands, again, I don't expect either of these guys to get in, But what the class looks like, I'm not putting Reggie Wayne above Hines Ward. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I'm definitely not putting Anquan Bolden above Hines Ward. There's no questions there. Torrey Holt's got an argument to be made, but I still think I'd put Hines Ward up there for what he's done and the accomplishments and the stage that he did it in and the consistency that he did it in. I think that's the most challenging. It wouldn't surprise me if James got in before Hines. But I think both of them, just like you said, like they have the moments. That's what you need. You have so many moments that they are pieces, like very, very big pieces of NFL history. And that's what you want in the Hall of Fame if you are the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we'll see what happens. They will cut down that list from 25 to 15 near the end of the year. And then the modern era finalists or inductees, will be announced in February during the NFL honors.
All righty, from potential future Hall of Fame Steelers to a new member of the Steelers practice squad that's technically an old member. Eric Rowe re-signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers to their practice squad. Everybody remembers his heroics late last season, including a huge interception in Week 16 against the Cincinnati Bengals. So Steelers adding more depth to the defensive backs rooms. Eric Rowe returning to Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Everybody wants to know what it means. Why did they go out there and sign Eric Rowe? I just think it's a move that replaces Terrell Edmunds on the practice squad with another name that is reliable. That if they need to call him up, they will call him up. They understand that he can make plays and he could be a reliable name when you need him to be a reliable name. It's essentially just a replacement. That's all it is. It's not coming in here to replace Cam Sutton or DeMonte KZ or Deshaun Elliott or Minka Fitzpatrick or any of those guys. It's simply to come in here, replace Terrell Edmunds with a guy that you could get on your practice squad that you feel very comfortable in. I don't know why they didn't bring back Terrell Edmunds. That one very much so surprised me. But Eric Rowe played really well last season, and because of it, I think it was more surprising that he didn't come back at the beginning of the year, even at a practice squad capacity. But he's here now. He's 32 years old. I bet you he could still play some football. And I will say that he is one of the best human beings I've ever spoken to in that locker room. One of the nicest guys. So you always want those guys to succeed, and I'm glad he's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, a lot of people have said why. I saw that a lot under the official announcement from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why? Why Eric Rowe? Why now? Well, the Steelers are planning on going on a run, hopefully, to a Super Bowl. So when you need to do that, you need to make sure that you have depth, especially in case you incur some injuries. And Eric Rowe last year was a difference maker for the Steelers. So getting him for little to no cost, that's why. That's a great addition. That's a smart, small addition that sometimes, as we've been talking about with Omar Khan this year, can add up in the right way. Yeah,
I agree. And those are what you need. You just need a bunch of guys where you're not pulling guys off the couch if you need to pull guys off the couch. And right now the Steelers are a pretty depth heavy team. And that's where you want to be at this point in the year.
So let's finish off news and notes with these crazy rumors here, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there hasn't been good football being played in the state of New Jersey, because that's where these two teams play, is the state of New Jersey. And yet, potentially, we could see those quarterbacks coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. Well, according to ESPN's Ben Solak, Giants quarterback Daniel Jones could make his way to Pittsburgh in the offseason, saying, "I can see a future for Jones on a team with far better offensive infrastructure than he ever enjoyed with the Giants. I've heard the Jets mentioned, but I don't really like how that feels. I'm also keeping my eyes on the Steelers as the current running favor." And it didn't end there, because A to Z Sports' Wendell Ferreira believes that New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers could end up a member of the Steelers in the 2025 season. So out of nowhere, New Jersey quarterbacks might be coming to the Steelers next year. And my question is, where did Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields go in the meantime?
I don't know. It must have just decided the Steelers have an opening at quarterback. I think that's the funniest part of all of this, is that every time you read one of these stories, it includes in the explanation, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are set to be free agents. Yeah, pal. We're well aware of that. You expect both of them to leave to go to where? Teams like the Giants and the Jets? That's where they're gonna leave the 8-2 Pittsburgh Steelers and say, we could go to the Jets, who don't have a coach a general manager, probably the worst owner in the NFL right now. And I mean, Devontae Adams is going to get out of there too. So literally nobody. It's just me, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson trying to figure something out with nobody around us. That sounds like a great idea. The Giants, I mean, what? You're going to the Giants over the Pittsburgh Steelers? Have the Giants been relevant outside of one win in the playoffs against, I believe, the Minnesota Vikings a couple of years ago? They have not been relevant in a long, long time. Since Eli Manning, shout out Hall of Fame semifinalist. That's the funniest part to all of this, is that people just assume that both of these guys are leaving, or they just toss it in there as like a reason to, well, the Steelers are the front runner for Daniel Jones. Why? Because they're going to want a young quarterback to be the guy and not re-sign Russell Wilson. Yes. Daniel Jones is 27 years old. Justin Fields is 25 years old. Daniel Jones is 2-7 this season, maybe 2-8 this season. Justin Fields is 4-2 this season. Year with the organization, brand new to the organization, wanted to come here, got canned by his other team. I mean, we could just keep going back and forth if you want. We could just go through the entire checklist, but it makes absolutely zero sense. Then you go to Aaron Rodgers. This one's hilarious because you have that guy. You have the future potential Hall of Famer. And I get it. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. No questions asked. First ballot, first one in. Doesn't matter who else retires with him. He is the guy that goes in there first. What? You're going to replace Russell Wilson for Aaron Rodgers. That's the decision that the Steelers are making. Why? Because Russell Wilson isn't playing well and Aaron Rodgers is playing very well. I've watched a Jets game this season. Russell Wilson smoked him and looked 100 times better than Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers has sunk mighty fast since that Pittsburgh Steelers game. Comes with a lot. I mean, you want to talk baggage. People talk Russell Wilson's a weirdo, man. He's doing high stepping on the plane and he's got his own office and blah, blah. Aaron Rodgers just tears down organizations. Like, what are you talking? He's on a talk show every single week talking smack on people. He openly calls out wide receivers that you went and got because he didn't want him anymore. And he caught one pass for 32 yards and a touchdown in 2 games. Again, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But I'll ask you, because apparently there are people out there who think this. If you had to pick one, what one's more likely? And I know the real answer is none.
Yeah.
The real answer is neither. There are quarterbacks. That's the worst part, is there are quarterbacks who could be available that the Pittsburgh Steelers would consider adding to their roster. If Will Levis becomes available from the Tennessee Titans, the Steelers are nuts not to say, yeah, let's bring Will Levis in here and let him learn behind Russell Wilson and see what happens. Daniel Jones is 27, pal. You're not sticking him behind Russell Wilson for 3 seasons and then saying, all right, let's see what he's got. No, he's going to be 30 years old. What are we doing here? No, I'm sorry. There are names. These 2 names are not one of them, or either of them. But if you had to pick, because that's what we do here, man, we cater to the crowd. Aaron Rodgers or Daniel Jones, who would you say has the likelier chance to end up in Pittsburgh?
I mean, it has to be Daniel Jones. And again, that is the lesser of 2 evils in that situation. But you had conversations and people like both of us saying, well, I don't know if they would pick the 35-year-old for the future over the 25-year-old in Justin Fields. Why would they go all the way in the other direction and take the 40-year-old that is absolutely washed? I mean, that's what he has shown this year. And he has Garrett Wilson, who should be a top 5 receiver in the NFL. He now has Devontae Adams. He has Breece Hall. He has a pretty decent defense. And yet that is one of the biggest laughing stocks of the NFL this year. Do you want to go out and get that guy? No. So if I am held at gunpoint to take one of these 2, sure, I'll take Daniel Jones and I'll say maybe we can make him the great value branded Justin Fields. Maybe. But at the end of the day, you know what you're going to do. And I know that you led that off. But if I'm held at gunpoint and I'm told that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both said, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't quite like Permane sandwiches, so I'm going to leave the city of Pittsburgh.
They both looked at Mike Tomlin and said, hey, pal, I'm sorry, dude. You suck. This organization sucks. It's a train wreck over here. We have no good wide receivers to throw the football to. There's no good running game. Arthur Smith, trash. He's not good. I mean, we don't have anything to build off of. Our 23-year-old superstar wide receiver, clown. Our tight end that just signed a massive extension. He's not worth crap. Our 6'8", 315-pound tight end. He stinks too. Our 2 backup running backs, garbage. Mike Williams sucks. Best defense in football. Why would I want to play with those guys? Greatest fans in the NFL. Nah, not for me, pal. I like a quiet stadium on Sundays. No yelling. I'm going to a team like the Jets or the Giants. No, I just wild. Who now have quarterback openings because both of these guys are clearly coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Apparently. But I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I mean, that was all of it. And the only way that I can see either, and it's funny because your sarcastic spiel, at least I'll call it sarcastic because I'm assuming,
yes.
It started with Mike Tomlin. That's the only way both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are gone is if Mike Tomlin miraculously says, you know what, something that hasn't hit me in 19 years just hit me, and I'm leaving. And of course, we know he's not going to college because there's not a booster with a big enough blank check to get him to go to college. So he's going
getting
somewhere
traded to the Browns. He's getting traded to the Browns.
Yeah.
Did you hear Brady Quinn?
I heard that
Mike
too.
Tomlin is would throw the that's where he's going, dude.
Sure.
Art Rooney answered the phone and said, yeah, no, that sounds like a good move. You know what we should do? We should actually send our head coach, who's never had a losing season, to our rivals because, they're looking to win games. We got to help them out. It's all about spreading the love here in the NFL. Obviously.
Especially the AFC North. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no love lost. I mean,
what's mine is yours, right?
That's what they say. So here it is. I'm going to call you. I'm going to ask it because you didn't give me an answer. Of the two, what one would be more likely?
Of which one? I said Daniel Jones. If you put me
did you say Daniel Jones?
I said if you put me at gunpoint and only told me to choose between the two, it's Daniel Jones.
It's Daniel Jones. It is Daniel Jones. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't step within 30 feet of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization.
No, there's too many lights.
That's true. That's true. There's no what is he putting in? Tabasco sauce or something in water and like jalapeno juice or something with some lime, whatever the kicker for the punter for the Jets gave him. Said fountain of the youth here. Well, pal, it's clearly clogging your ability to play quarterback. So you should stop. Just get old. It's okay to get old. That's the wildest rumors I've heard. But I had a great time because I love a good what the hell moment. And this is it's just a good reminder.
Not to listen to?
Reminder. Yeah. That sometimes people talk and they shouldn't be talking. And, I'm sure I'll run into one of these guys somewhere at some event somewhere. And there's a chance they see me talking about them. But they had it coming, pal. They had it coming. Shout out Aaron Rodgers. Shout out Daniel Jones. Hope they're good. Shout out Tommy DeVito. That's a guy. You want to talk about a guy who could actually come to Pittsburgh? Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, the other guys in New York. Who's the back? Whoever the back? Oh, Tyrod Taylor. Why not Tyrod Taylor come to back up Russell Wilson in 2025? Makes zero sense whatsoever. But I had a blast. With that said, that's the end of our news and notes here. We're diving into Week 12 power rankings. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. But first, we'll be right back. We got a quick break and a word from our boys over at Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. And for any that you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all accounts, easily creates a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track, and sees your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. Get alerts if your bills increase in price, there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. And the new goals feature automatically saves money for you without you even having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes up to 20%. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. They could save members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. That's rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. Shout out our boys over at Rocket Money. While we were out, Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns, has been ruled out of this game with a knee injury, which means that the Cleveland Browns are lining up right guard Jermaine Afidi at left tackle, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you're sitting there thinking, man, what are the sack totals? Nick Herbig sack totals. Move TJ Watt to the left side a little bit. The door is open. Afidi is a former second-round pick. I believe he's a second-round pick, but has never played on the left side. He's only played right, and for most of his career has played guard. So shout out. Things are looking real good for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, but we'll dive into how that affects some picks tomorrow with the podcast. Let's dive into this week's power rankings for Week 12 Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, and I will address it as such. There is changes, and those changes come because guys have stepped up, and I feel as if I've been holding on to the totality of the season and saying this is what decides where I am and what we do and how guys are placed in these power rankings. And I've decided that sometimes it's got to be smaller sample sizes because the NFL is a constantly moving machine. And while Najee Harris is a top player on the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's not a top 5 player on the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into Week 12. And there are a few other guys who fit that bill as well. Meanwhile, there are other guys who might not have had the beginning of the season that they were hoping for that would land them in the top 5, but they are having the back half of the season that have landed them in the top 5. And then there are 2 names who, well, have only left, one of them has only left this list one time, quickly came back, climbed himself back into the 3 spot, and they have not left, and they don't seem like they're leaving anytime soon. We will start at the top of the list here at number 5. All the way down from number 2 after an interception, 4 sacks, not the greatest game against the Baltimore Ravens. Still a ton of faith in what he is going to do for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the contender that he makes them as their starting quarterback. But Russell Wilson has fallen from 2 to 5 here simply because, yeah, he's doing what he needs to do, but there are guys that are doing much more. And in a game where the Steelers defense has shown up, shown out, and shown they are elite, well, there has to be more defensive names on this list than offensive. And we have had games where there are more offensive than defensive names on this list. But this week it is, well, it's a defensive game because the defense came through, because Chris Boswell probably should have been on this list. And now I'm realizing I did not put him on this list, and that is on me. We will make him an honorary co-captain of number 1 as I stay here now, because I mean, let's be real. He deserves to be number 1 on this list. And again, on me. I saw him pop up too. As I did my power rankings, I retweeted Chris Boswell wins AFC player of the week. Well, shout out me. Number 5 is Russell Wilson. I mean, this is a guy that continues to carry this offense, but there's one more player who's a little bit more impressive, who's a little bit higher on this list. And we'll get to him a little bit later. Number 4. This is a guy people have been yelling at me about. Get him on the list. He deserves to be on the list. What is he doing? Get him on the list. He's playing out of his mind right now. Get him on the list. There were a lot of people who did not want this guy at the beginning of the season, who thought this was a terrible move, who could not believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers big giant splash signing, they gave a single-digit number to a defender. What are we doing? Get him out of here. Not worth the money. Bust signing, they called him. Yeah, well, in the last 2 weeks, this guy has combined for 17 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, and got all the revenge in the world against the team that refused to offer him a contract this past offseason. Number 4, making his debut for the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers power rankings is none other than number 6 himself, Patrick Queen. Playing out of his mind the last 2 weeks, has been a true, solid, solidified, you are the force in the middle inside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers since the bye week. That is all they have asked for. That is all they have asked for years, was to find that guy. Patrick Queen is starting to look like that guy, and he's got more potential than anybody they've ever had there outside of Ryan Shazier in a long time. So, well, here it is. Let's see where he could go from here. For right now, he's at number 4. Number 3, left this list for a little while, came back rather quickly, and you'd sit there and you'd think, he was kind of quiet against the Ravens. Should he be number 4? Should Patrick Queen be number 3? That was the thought I had. So I said, you know what? This is what we do. We look up stats, and I looked up stats. And he had 2 pass deflections. And immediately I went, that's just what he does, man. Like TJ Watt getting quiet sacks, but multiple sacks in a game, this guy comes through with big moments that we don't even pay attention to because we take them for granted. Number 3 on this list is Cam Hayward. Father Time has not even shown his face yet. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's hiding in the corner and scared to come out of whatever shadow he's in because Cam Hayward is going to say, pal, it ain't happening. Not yet. I'm 35. No defensive tackle has played this well at 35 ever in the history of the NFL. Cam Hayward is a dude who, if you took just this season and said you could base a Hall of Fame off of one season, that's all it was. This is the season you choose, and you say nobody has done this at 35 at this position. And he's a bona fide Hall of Famer because of it. We'll get there in a couple of years, maybe 8 years from now. Cam Hayward might be 45 years old before he's nominated for the Hall of Fame, which is wild. But for right now, he's number 3 on my Pittsburgh Steelers power rankings for week 12 because he does not stop. He does not quit. And he continues to show that he is everything the Pittsburgh Steelers need him more. And when healthy, he is as dangerous as they come. Number 2. Almost said number 3. Number 2. The guy that's keeping Russell Wilson alive, my friend. The guy who is coming up with crazy plays, who is on one insane tear where we stand right now. A guy who, we talked yesterday, can he finish number 3? I think he's got a shot at number 2. And if you ask me where he stands in the grand scheme of things, he is easily a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a superstar. He just needed a quarterback. Well, he's got that quarterback. That quarterback's Russell Wilson. That wide receiver is George Pickens. There is only one player on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now better than George Pickens. And if that guy wasn't on the Pittsburgh Steelers, because there are a lot of teams without that guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers have, or anywhere close to that guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers have, George Pickens would be number 1 with ease. With ease. He is the most talented member of the Pittsburgh Steelers outside of that one guy. And quite frankly, I think if you asked that one guy, he'd tell you George Pickens is more talented than him. I just don't think he's as scary. George Pickens is the second best player on the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are no questions to it. And number 1, for the whatever week in a row, left number 1 one time, came back to it real fast. Real fast. Not 1, but 2 sacks against Lamar Jackson. Having a year that should put him at the front of the Defensive Player of the Year rankings. And I get it. Myles Garrett's out here talking, yeah, dude, TJ Watt shouldn't care at all about me winning Defensive Player of the Year. Well, he should when he should have won it. And now he's ready to say, well, vengeance is a real thing. And I don't care about Myles Garrett because he doesn't. He's got no beef with Myles Garrett. He's got no beef with Micah Parsons. He's got no beef with Max Crosby or anybody else who's going to be up in that front runners list for Defensive Player of the Year once again. What he's got beef with is the fact that he is the best defensive player in football. He's been the best defensive player in football, and he does not get the respect he deserves as the best defensive player in football, but he'll get the respect in the power rankings week after week after week. Number 1 is TJ Watt, 7.5 sacks. I forget the rest of the list. 2 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries this season. He is on a tear. He is doing it once again. He is beating Myles Garrett, and you could go check my tweet about how he's beating Myles Garrett across the board, even though PFF decides to grade Myles Garrett 0.1 over TJ Watt. But that is my list. Russell Wilson, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, George Pickens, TJ Watt. Najee Harris falls off this week, and I'll say I don't want to do it to him, but it's been a while since a 100-yard game. And because of that, you got guys who are soaring. I think Najee's 100-yard game, or pretty close to it, a couple of touchdowns away from getting pretty firmly back in this list. And against Cleveland, I think he's got a shot. Your thoughts on this one? Russell Wilson, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, George Pickens.
A lot of love for George Pickens. And I think we've talked about it a lot over the past couple of days. Don't look now, but all of a sudden he's one of the top 3, top 4 wide receivers in the National Football League week in and week out. So I agree with you. There's nobody on this Pittsburgh Steelers team, save for TJ Watt, that is at a higher level right now than George Pickens. And I will say this, you said that maybe TJ's a little bit scarier. You look at some of the stuff that George does on the field, he's a little scary. I mean, you saw him walk into oblivion the one time. We've seen him do WWE sentons in the middle of the game. The way he randomly does stuff, he's entertaining, but also that's a person that if I saw walking down the street doing those things, I'd say, I'm going to hop to the other side, guys, because that guy is doing some crazy stuff. Well, he's doing crazy stuff both in the scheme of the football game and outside it, because that's George Pickens, but his talent is showing. He's putting it all together, and he's showing what he can be at his best, which is one of the top 3, 4, 5 receivers in the National Football League. And Patrick Queen, my guy, I'm happy to see him make the list. He's a guy that I said yesterday, and this is an overreaction Tuesday, that I believe firmly in my soul that I think is going to play at an all-pro level the rest of this season. So I'm glad he's making the list, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just gets comfortable on that list and stays on it the rest of the season.
I think he's got an opportunity to get comfortable on that list and stay there the rest of the season. He's playing like the guy who's finally comfortable in this defense, understands how to take advantage of his opportunities, and isn't afraid to mess up. And I think that was the biggest thing, is he's playing fast. He wasn't playing fast at the beginning of the season. It was come back to bite him in the butt. He was taking wrong angles, and therefore he was slowing down. Now he's just saying, hey, I'm here, man. I'm comfortable. I'm part of this. Let's make some moves. Let's hit some people. And that's where we stand. That's our week 12 power rankings. Russell Wilson, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, George Pickens, and TJ Watt. With that said, we are diving into your questions, finishing the show as we do every single day. If you got them, toss them in the chat. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at The Perfect Gene. 400,000. That's how many men have rescued their nuts from stiff, unforgiving jeans, all thanks to The Perfect Gene. These jeans have enough stretch to accommodate Thanksgiving dinner and are comfy enough to wear all day watching Sunday football. Plus, even though they feel like sweatpants, they look good enough to be your go-to pants for date night. The Perfect Gene has the perfect size for everybody, and we mean everybody. They've got 6 different fits, waists running from 26 to 50 and lengths from 26 to 38, which means there are over 5,000 possible combinations of pants for you to choose from. So if you're a short king or actually 6'5", if you love a loose fit or are still in your skinny jean era, or if you're bulking up or cutting down, the Perfect Gene is the perfect option for you. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc, or Google The Perfect Gene and use our code ALLSteelers15 for 15% off. It's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectgene.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code ALLSteelers15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectgene.nyc with promo code ALLSteelers15. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Fuck your khakis and get the Perfect Gene. It makes me laugh every time, dude. It makes me laugh every time. I think we were supposed to put like a little like over it or something, and we just don't roll like that. We just don't roll like that. This is why you love YouTube. This is why you love YouTube. It sounds like it's starting to rain outside, which means that Cleveland's going to be a good time tomorrow. Cleveland is going to be a good time tomorrow. All right, we're diving into all your questions as we do every single day. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We will get to probably all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'll toss it to you. What do we got?
Yeah, Steven checked in with that conversation we had about Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers earlier, saying, did everybody forget that Russell Fields wanted to be in Pittsburgh?
That's a fantastic point here. And it's look at Russell Wilson has said he wants to play 5 to 7 more years. Justin Fields got traded out of Chicago and said, I want to go to Pittsburgh, even knowing Russell Wilson is here. If Russ leaves and they feel there's no reason to bring him back, Justin is priority one without question, no questions asked. I mean, the Steelers have said we have 2 starting quarterbacks. They wouldn't say that if Kenny Pickett was here. They wouldn't say that if Mason Rudolph was here. They wouldn't say that if Mitch Trubisky was here. They'd say, yeah, we have a couple of good quarterbacks. That's what they would say. They have 2 starting quarterbacks. The first option is going to be Russ. Option 2 is easily going to be Justin Fields. And then option 3 might be the NFL draft, pal. There are a lot of options before they get down to Aaron Rodgers and Daniel Jones. And everything's got to go wrong before they possibly get to either of those guys, because the 2 guys in-house just suddenly don't want to be here. It's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers wouldn't pay them, and it's not like either of them are going out and getting $50 million next year. So I think it would be pretty easy. But you make a great point. Shout out to Steven.
Let's go over to Deluxe Skittles, who says, does Justin Fields know that it would be foolish to leave Pittsburgh in the offseason? Could the con artist find a way to re-sign him to a team-friendly deal?
Yeah, so if Russell Wilson leaves, Justin Fields will be priority 1. But if Russell Wilson stays, which if I had to guess is the most likely option, he's going to sign up a multi-year deal, a 2-3-year deal with the Steelers. And at that point, Justin's going to leave. He's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to look for a starting opportunity, which is what he should do. You could stay out in Pittsburgh and say, hey, in a couple of years, I'm that guy. But, I mean, you're really missing out on a lot of career when you are one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. So the Steelers aren't going to get best of both worlds and be able to get both of these guys. They won't get their cake and eat it too, but they will get to keep one of them, and it could be either of them. If I had to guess, it's Russell Wilson, but let's not rule out Justin Fields just yet.
Let's go to Inferno SRT, who says, what is it going to take to get Boz in the number 1 spot in your power rankings? Respect the Wizard of Boz.
Yeah. Boz should have been number 1. He should have been number 1. That's on me. I messed up there. Didn't even cross my mind until we started these power rankings and I mentioned him and I went, yeah, that's a guy. It's a guy I forgot about. So that one's on me. I'll let him know. I'll tell him that I forgot about him. And if he happens to somehow watch this, that he should have been number 1 on that one. That's on me.
Let's go over to Sam, who says, speaking of quarterbacks in the draft, what about Drew Aller as a 3rd round pick to the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to last to the 3rd round, but I like Drew Aller. I think he's very good. I think he's got potential. I think he has some work, obviously, but he is definitely a name. I think the Steelers will probably draft a quarterback in the top 3 rounds this year or next year. If Russ is the guy and signs a 3-year deal, they will bring somebody in before Russ is done to make sure that he could learn behind Russ. And I'd say in the top 3 rounds is probably what they would do within that time span. Drew Aller could be a name. They'll definitely go to Penn State, at least send somebody to Penn State. Aller is kind of fallen off a little bit deeper into the season, but he is definitely a name to watch. I think by the end of it, he's going to rise higher than the 3rd round.
Let's jump down to Casey, who says, what are the chances that Troy Fautanu comes back early and becomes a big factor for the playoff run?
Almost 0. I don't believe he's coming back in the regular season. I don't think there's any opportunity for him to come back in the regular season. He's just not there yet. He's not even close. In the playoffs, I guess maybe that nobody's ruled that out. From what I've been told, they're not ruling that out, but nobody's sitting around waiting for it to happen at the same time. So I would say slim to none, definitely not before the playoffs.
Let's go over to Cody Silva, who says Chris Carter gave Broderick and Dan Moore skulls last week. I thought Russ was the reason that Russ was getting sacked. I'm not asking a controversy, but did Broderick and Dan Moore play bad in your eyes against the Ravens?
Oh, they played terrible. They played so bad. They both played atrocious. So did most of the offensive line. I mean, Zach Frazier had a terrible game in that one. That's just, it was both. It was a little bit of both, and everybody's going to evaluate it off different things. I'm not saying Russ was the reason he got sacked or was the only reason he got sacked. The offensive line was atrocious in this one, but he was holding on to the ball a lot. And I think a lot of that plays into wide receivers too. Like, nobody was getting open. It's just, it was an all-around complete disaster in the passing game outside of George Pickens and Darnell Washington. Shout out. But it was Russ looking for more of an opportunity. The offensive game plan not opening up that opportunity by throwing smaller, shorter routes. Nobody getting open, and the offensive line being, well, really, really bad. It was a combination of everything.
Let's go back to Casey, who had another question here. Says, just bought tickets for the home divisional round playoff game. First, do you think the Steelers make it there? And second, who do you think they'll play if they do?
Oh, who they play, I think, is impossible to guess. The
Bills.
Divisional round, yeah, potentially, unless they're the 4 seed and they
don't get a home second rounder.
They don't get home. No, they wouldn't get a. I think it's tough to say they're going to get a home game in the second round right now, but I don't think it's impossible. I said on Tuesday that it's not an overreaction to say that. I think if I had to guess, it'd be a team like Buffalo. That would be my guess. Maybe Kansas City, but I don't know. I'm not banking on it. It would be one of those two teams, but even if they get the 1st seed, like, to get a home playoff game, you're probably going to have to come pretty close to that 1st seed. Mm-hmm. And because 2 is you're going to be a game away, because 1, 2, 3 is going to be, 3 losses max, maybe 2 with Buffalo, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh. So you're going to have to be right in that mix. I would say it's either Kansas City or Buffalo is who you're playing. Slim shot, it might be Houston if you get the 4 seed.
Let's go
or if you get the 1 seed.
Alrighty, let's go over to Lauren, who says, how often do you think we'll see a QB package with such a short week?
I think we'll see it more. I think we'll see it more this week than last week, just because the Steelers will not, they broke it out. They gave the Browns no time to adjust and game plan for it. Now they're going to break it out a little bit more, and then they'll kind of put it to rest for a little bit. That's what they'll do, is they'll say, hey, we're going to use this to our advantage in a rainy, crappy game and get Justin Fields more involved. And then we're going to put it on pause because every team's going to be waiting for it. Then they're going to forget about it, and then we're going to bring it back out. That's my guess. I would say this is the perfect situation for more Justin Fields.
Let's go to AJ, who doesn't have a question, but a reminder that I definitely wanted to highlight. 1 down, 5 to go for the Steelers to sweep the North, and Noah will grow out a mullet. I hope he remembers. If not, I will remind him, AJ. Don't you worry about that.
I do remember. I do certainly remember, and I will hold to that. I got a little bit of flow back here, a little bit. We're figuring it out, so I'm getting prepared. We're preparing for this one. If it happens, it will not be long before that mullet. Let me tell you that.
I'd love to see you have a mullet down in New Orleans. I think that is the perfect thing that I can envision right now.
I just don't. That's what worries me. I actually had this thought last night. I was on the phone with like an SI, like director higher up or whatever, an on SI director higher up, and we're just chatting, talking, and I hung up the phone and I was like, what if they see me in Indianapolis with a mullet? Like, what is the response to that? Do I worry about that situation? I don't know. I don't know, but I have had that thought, definitely.
Let's jump down to Big Al. Appreciate you as always. Says, what wide receiver in the 2025 draft would be the perfect fit?
Oof, that is a tough call. Let me put the wide receivers there. I mean, obviously McMillan is like the guy, but he's going to go well before he's probably going to go top 5, but 6'5", as fast as he could run. He's nuts. Egbuka out of Ohio State is definitely a name that I think would interest me because he's speedy and bigger speed. He's not Calvin Austin. He's a moonball, run out in space, 6'1" type of guy. You could probably look at a guy, maybe Trey Harris out of Ole Miss is a name that would make some sense. He's a bigger body as well. I think that's where the Steelers are going to go, is those bigger bodies. Torrey Horton out of Colorado State might be an interesting name, but however, because he is fantastic. He's very slept on, but he's injured. He's been beat up a lot of the season. Isaiah Bond is also a name to watch. He's a bit smaller, but I still think he works. But if I had to guess, Egbuka, Emeka Egbuka is, I think, the best fit for the Steelers and what they do, who their quarterback most likely will be, and just like a vertical threat to stretch the field to kind of take pressure away from George Pickens.
Let's go over to Unlimited Moonballs, who says, help me settle a work debate here. At what point does someone earn the franchise quarterback title? And is it correct that we haven't had one since Ben Roethlisberger retired?
Don't go look at some of these YouTube clips because you go back far enough. I've definitely called Kenny Pickett a franchise quarterback. But I think it is earned. I think it is earned. The Steelers have not had a franchise quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger. That's what a franchise quarterback is. People toss franchise quarterback out there all the time anymore and just say, oh, he's great. He's a franchise quarterback. This is their next franchise quarterback before he even plays a game. Opportunity to be a franchise quarterback? Certainly. Not definitely going to be a franchise quarterback. A franchise quarterback is a guy that, I don't know. I would say, what are we saying? A full season? One full season of like, there is no questions. This guy is a stud. He is the future. You know, CJ Stroud became a franchise quarterback last season.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels on the verge of being a franchise quarterback. Drake May is right behind him, I would say. But Kenny Pickett wasn't. Will Levis isn't. Who else was in that draft class? Justin Fields hasn't been. You know, he won a couple of games, but he's not. Russell Wilson isn't even a franchise quarterback for the Steelers right now, but he was one for a long time. I think it's earned. I think you have to at least a year, maybe two, of like, this is my team and I could win with them.
So I have a criteria that I've actually thought this one out.
Okay.
3 years with a winning record, cumulative over those 3 years, or you win a playoff game. That's what gets you to be a franchise quarterback for a team.
Just one playoff? Like, what if Daniel Jones won a playoff game?
Yeah, I mean, he was considered a franchise. He was paid like a franchise quarterback, wasn't he?
He was.
I'm not saying that's a good quarterback. I'm saying you are that franchise's quarterback if you have 3 years in a winning record. Or, which did he have 3 years in a winning record?
He might have came close. He might have
first 3 years. I don't know what his record was. Or a playoff win. Once he got that playoff win, he was paid as a franchise quarterback. Doesn't mean the franchise is picking the right one, but that means that he was their franchise quarterback. They picked him over Saquon, for God's sakes. They saw him as their franchise quarterback.
I don't disagree. I think there could be tiers to how good of a franchise quarterback you are. I like the criteria. I like Mason Rudolph beats the Bills next year or last year. Is he a franchise quarterback?
No. Because I don't think they would have brought him back.
So you gotta win a game and then get paid. You gotta win a playoff game and then get paid. Okay.
Well,
or
sorry,
the three.
Did I say or? I meant and. 3 games and a playoff win.
That's a totally different situation. Okay. I like that.
Yeah, sorry.
Like
that's why there was a disconnect. I was like, I don't.
Yeah, I was like, dude, there are a lot of teams that win playoff game. Nick Folk won a Super Bowl, pal. Like,
yeah,
not a
was
franchise
Robert
quarterback.
The third ever a franchise quarterback for the Washington Unnamed. He took him to the playoffs 1 year, and then it fell apart. So, do you consider him ever? No, I don't. And no, I don't think Kenny Pickett was a franchise quarterback. So nobody since been.
No, you could send that right to freezing cold takes. I got caught slipping.
Go victim. You got excited. It's all right. It happens. Yeah. Let's go to Heath to bring your spirits back up. Says, great show. I love Tuesdays. Thank you. There you go. Make you feel a little bit better about it.
I appreciate it. We definitely appreciate you guys.
Let's jump over to Carl, who says, got a fun one for both of you today. If you could swap any one player on offense and defense with any other player on another team, and your task was to win a Super Bowl this year, who do you pick?
Russell Wilson for Patrick Mahomes would be number one.
Okay. Let me help Carl out here. Take out quarterback position because that's a cheat code.
That's just not even fair. The Van Jefferson for Justin Jefferson. That's also very easy answer. Van Jefferson for Justin Jefferson, hands down, no questions asked. There's the offense. I would love to see anybody debate that one. On defense, man, that's a tough one. I think I'd swap out. I think I'd swap out Larry Ogunjobi, and this sucks because I'm not trying to like make this a negative towards Larry O.
Yeah.
But I think I'd either swap out Larry O for Dexter Lawrence.
That's where I was thinking.
Yeah. Or I'd swap out Dante Jackson for Patrick Surtain. Those would be my two, I think.
Yeah, I think that you have to go either D-line or cornerback. I just don't think the holes are as severe anywhere else on the defense.
Yeah, who are you're gonna swap out Patrick Queen for like Fred Warner? Like that's awesome.
I mean,
yeah, but like
maybe
what's
the other one, maybe like Peyton Wilson / Landon Roberts for Fred Warner because it's Fred Warner. But again, you're taking the best player at that position over the past half decade over two guys that are very good at their job. So
yeah,
it's helping. But again, Steelers have one of the best defenses in the league. So
yeah,
that's where that conversation gets a little bit murky. But let's go over to Big Al, who says, am I dumb to think Martavis Bryant is still good and that we should sign him?
Oh, man, Big Al. I don't think Martavis Bryant is as good as he once was. I also don't think that there's, even if they should sign him, there is no chance that they would sign Martavis Bryant. I've heard, I got stories on Martavis Bryant. You've heard stories throughout the years of Martavis Bryant that he's not coming back to Pittsburgh. He wouldn't be an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His time here was just a little bit too chaotic for them to be looking for a return. But I agree with you. I think Martavis Bryant should still get an opportunity in the NFL. Just don't think it's probably with Pittsburgh.
Let's go over to Mike Lang, who says, is it me or does Kimberly Martin of ESPN just a Steelers hater? First, they wanted to see if the Steelers can beat a team if that team scores more than 20. Now we didn't score any touchdowns, and they're not good enough.
I won't lie to you. I don't watch much ESPN. I try to avoid it because it's just so much. Do you watch ESPN every day?
I mean, does Pat McAfee count?
No, Pat McAfee does not count.
Does not count.
Because I watch Pat
proper, as I call it.
Yeah.
I watch Get Up every once in a while, but just clips.
Just clips, right? It's tough. It's gotten tough. It's definitely gotten, it's not what it used to be. I think our adaptation to podcasts and stuff like the Pat McAfee show have changed how we want football to be presented to us. So, I'll tell you this. There are a lot of people on ESPN who are haters with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's rough, man, because it makes no sense to me. I think the Steelers being 2-0 with Chris Boswell winning 2 games is more impressive than it is a negative. Like the Baltimore Ravens couldn't win with their kicker on Sunday. They actually lost because their kicker. No other teams. The other teams are 2-18, not scoring a touchdown this season. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0. That means that they could win when they need to win, how they need to win. Mike Tomlin wins games. The Steelers love ugly. It's what they do. So I would agree with you. I think a lot of people on ESPN are haters.
Let's go over to Richard, who says, how come Christian Kuntz doesn't get much love?
Christian Kuntz deserves all the love, and I hope he gets some shot on Hard Knocks because he will be a star. Christian's the dude. He's a great dude. He's a great guy. He's hilarious, super humble, super nice human being, super hard worker. Christian's the guy. Christian's one of the best people in that locker room. Easy. I mean, you can't go wrong, Christian. He does deserve some love. I hope he gets some Hard Knocks. I hope he gets some views in Hard Knocks.
Let's go over to Sean Wells 814, who says, what happened to Kenny Golladay?
That is a question. What happened to Kenny Golladay? I mean, whatever happened to him? He's gone now. He's in Detroit, left Detroit after being an absolute stud.
Uh-oh.
You're hearing that, right?
I'm hearing that. I'm not getting that because I don't live in the same place. But
dude, that
doesn't sound good for you.
No, yeah. It makes sense because outside this window is absolutely wild right now. Like it is crazy. It is pitch black. It's wild times. That being said, Kenny Golladay, He was in Detroit, ended up in New York, did nothing in New York. Remember, like he signed a massive deal, sat on the bench. I don't know where he is now.
Nowhere. I mean, he hasn't played a game since 2022, so nowhere.
Yeah. I don't think he'd be an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's go over to Dylan, who says, why wasn't Mike Williams featured more against the Ravens?
Crazy enough, he actually played 25 snaps, which is, I think, just one less than Calvin Austin. He just wasn't utilized. I expect more against Cleveland, a little bit more. It's going to take a couple of weeks. It stinks that it's going to take a couple of weeks, but that's just how the Steelers do it. They don't put anybody in precarious situations and say, or advantageous situations and say, oh, that's awesome. Let's keep it going. Let's build this quickly. No, they just slow train, takes forever. And I would imagine that's the same with Mike Williams. I do expect more against Cleveland, but I would say it's going to be a slow rise for Mike Williams.
All righty. That is a wrap for today then.
With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work on si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we are heading out here. Remember that tomorrow's episode is pre-recorded. We'll drop it early in the morning to make sure you guys can check it out throughout the day. And then we will be back Friday at 9 a.m. to go live to recap and react to the Pittsburgh Steelers Cleveland Browns game. With that said, enjoy another very crazy but very beautiful day in the Burgh. Peace.